This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
Now, the next topic I'd like to talk about, and it's on everybody's web pages and on Facebook and on everywhere, TikTok, egg freezing. So there's a surge in interest from women in their 20s and 30s about egg freezing. So what is egg freezing? Basically, it is collecting eggs from your ovaries, as we do in an IVF cycle, but instead of fertilizing them with sperm, we freeze them. The technology in relation to egg freezing has advanced a lot in the last 10 years or so. So we know that when we freeze eggs, it's highly likely that they will survive the freezing and thawing process and that they would be available down the track to create a pregnancy for you. Why would you do it? Well, unfortunately, and as someone relatively senior in the fertility world, what I'm observing, and it's shown in the data, is that more and more women are trying to get pregnant later and later in life. There are multiple factors in that. I mean, number one, obviously, is finding Mr. Right at an early age, and increasingly Mr. Right is not being particularly enthusiastic about having babies at a relatively young age, i.e. less than 30, or even settling down to have a relationship before the age of 30. The data is quite clear. There's certain data like over 50% of males at the age of 27 are still living at home. I mean, really? They're not going to go out and they may have a good time, but in terms of settling down for a relationship, and I blame the males as much as the females in terms of this delay in deciding it's time to have a pregnancy. And when you do find Mr. Right, the next thing that's on the agenda isn't having a baby, it's becoming financially stable, getting the car, getting the house. And so children come down as the sort of third priority. The problem is that once you get over 35 and you haven't tried to conceive, your odds of getting pregnant deteriorate year by year by year. So at 35, in 12 months, you have about a 90% chance of having a baby if you've both got normal everything. Normal sperm, normal tubes, normal regular ovulation. 90% of you will be pregnant in a 12-month time frame. By the time you get to 40, it has dropped to 60 to 70%. And by 45, it's down to about 5 to 10%. So there's an aging process that occurs, and that's not because of the sperm, it's because the egg quality deteriorates with age. For reasons that we don't understand, we've evolved that way. That pregnancy later on in life wasn't what happened 1,000 years ago. You got pregnant when you were 18, 19, 25, and those sort of, even my grandparents' day, most women were having babies in their 20s. The average age of having a baby in Australia has gone from 20 years ago from around 27 to now 31 for their first baby. That's the average. And a lot of women are putting it off even later. So that's where egg freezing steps in. So if you don't have Mr. Right, or even if you've got Mr. Right and you're not planning to have a baby for another 5 or even 10 years, putting your eggs on ice keeps them viable, keeps them young in terms of their ability to produce a pregnancy. So an egg of a 30-year-old, even though it's been frozen for 10 years, still has the potential of a 30-year-old, as opposed to an egg trying to get eggs at 40 has probably a 25 to 30% chance of being successful. So that's why we talk about egg freezing. It's to some extent an insurance policy. Unfortunately, it's not a guaranteed insurance policy. and you need to get a good number of eggs to guarantee pregnancies. But if you're between 28 and 35 and all of those criteria that I talked about, no Mr. Right or intention to have put childbearing off for 5 or 10 years, egg freezing is where you should go. The next step when you're talking about egg freezing is to think about where you're going to have it done. And it's important to go to a clinic that has an established scientific record. The clinics like ours, we've got very senior staff who've been freezing eggs for the last decade. They know what they're doing. And our thawing and success rates are good. So going somewhere, finding a clinic that can prove that they actually have scientists that are capable of doing the right thing is very important. That cycle needs to be managed by experts, not by part-time IVF alleged fertility specialists. So that's an important step to make that decision, but also where to go. Obviously, one of the things for women in that age group is how much things cost. And around Sydney, for instance, the prices range from around about just over $3,000 through to $7,000 or $8,000. Do the cheap units give you the same service? Well, it depends on what you call as cheap. I mean, at Life Sydney, we have a plan which is a little bit more sophisticated, that it's a relatively low cost to start with, around about $3,500. The storage fees are slightly above average, so that over 5 years you pay off the fact that you're starting off with a cheaper group. But we thought that was a great way of enabling women who have limited resources to get into the egg freezing process. And it's working. Patients are coming to us because of our plan. Whether you'll use the eggs or not, it's interesting data. I mean, out of the US, it looks like around about 20 to 25% of women will ultimately use those eggs. So you may be investing in something you don't need, because you may find Mr. Right and you may get pregnant anyway in your late 30s. So you may not ever need them, but it is a good backup. What do you need to go through to get to having egg freezing? Well, first of all, as I said before, choosing a clinic like ours at Life Fertility. Make contact with the clinic. You'll get an appointment to see a specialist. They'll do an assessment, and most importantly, will give you a realistic view of how many eggs you'll get in a particular stimulated cycle, because that has implications in the sense of maybe you're going to have to do 2 or 3 cycles if your numbers of eggs in your ovaries is reduced. So we do blood tests to check that ovarian reserve, and then we, based on that, have a serious conversation about whether you want to do it or not do it. Not every woman is suitable. If you have a low ovarian reserve, maybe it's not worth doing. And we certainly, in the older age groups, the 40 plus, when we look at their ovarian reserve and find it low, our advice is not to go ahead. Some clinics will do it on anybody. My concern is that's not for the right reasons. It's not actually looking after you. This process, once you come through the cycle, is like an IVF cycle. You'll be taking drugs for about 10 days before the egg collection, injections in your tummy, and ultimately the egg collection, which is under light sedation. You're in and out in less than 2 hours. The eggs are collected through the vagina using a vaginal ultrasound to guide the needle into each of your ovaries to find the eggs. And then the scientists that afternoon will check that they're mature eggs. And when they decide that, they will then freeze them. And they were there for, well, basically forever once they're on ice. So that's the process. Risks of doing it are very small, but really, really, egg freezing is something you should think about if you are not in a relationship and are thinking about putting off childbearing for some years.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.